Barak Yahawah, Bahashem Yahawashi, Bahashem Rawchaa Qadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The First Beast. And this pretty much, Lord's will, is going to be a continuation of the video I did yesterday dealing with, and he giveth, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him. And Lord's will, we're going to examine that scripture again, as well as other precepts, whatever comes to mind through the Spirit. A couple of thoughts rolling around in my head, a couple of precepts. And Lord's will, to be an edifying lesson. Now, what I have here is just a quote that I found from the Club of Rome. And the Club of Rome is very important to this whole thing, because the Club of Rome, and that whole Rome issue is pretty much what America's following behind. And it's funny how it would be a group with the name Rome on it, that would be the ones responsible for a lot of the things you see going on today. The establishment, of the European Economic Union and things of that nature, and all of these different groups. So it says, a quote by Club of Rome, it says, "In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by what? By human intervention. Because really, they're the ones doing it. Matter of fact, scripture just came to mind. They're the ones doing it, but they're blaming it on everyone else. They're blaming it on humanity, that humanity destroyed the earth, but they're the ones that destroyed the earth. Isaiah 24:4, "The earth mourneth and fadeth away." When something fades away, it means it's getting old. And this is what's happening to the earth. Why? Because all of the foundations of the earth are out of course. And why are they out of course? Because the normal cycle of the ecosystem has been disturbed by these devils. It says, "It fadeth away, the world languisheth." The word languish means to be lacking. When something is lacking, it doesn't produce the same thing that it did. Now, we know that the scriptures speak about the earth aging and how it's not going to yield what it did when it was in her youth. But a lot of these lack of minerals and resources and things of that nature is because Esau doesn't follow the guidelines of the scriptures. Elder Apostle Gabar always speaks about the land Sabbaths. He hasn't for a while, but he normally speaks about land Sabbaths. These devils do not follow land Sabbaths. When you understand land Sabbaths, a land Sabbath would be, you would farm a land for 6 years. The 7th year, you would let that land rest. And there would still be things that would grow on it, but you wouldn't mess with it. Why? Because you're giving the land a chance to rejuvenate and replenish itself. You see? But these devils, with their greed, what they're doing is they're farming lands, to death. To the point now where nowadays it's going in a whole different direction. But at one point, they were farming the land to death to where there were no nutrients in the soil. And that's why you could eat the right food. You could do the research so you're blue in the face and find, okay, if I eat this fruit, it'll give me this. If I eat that vegetable, it'll give me this. If I eat this meat, it'll give me this. But when you look at the makeup of that particular fruit or vegetable or meat or whatever the case may be, it doesn't have the necessary nutrients needed, the minerals and the vitamins and all that needed for the body to function properly, because the body is a complex machine that needs a lot of different minerals and vitamins and different things of that nature to help it function. You see, but these devils have destroyed everything to where now you have to take supplements. You think Abraham and Isaac and Adam and all of these, men from the past, women from the past, after they ate a meal or after they did their workout or whatever the case may be, were going to their cupboard and looking, and okay, grab all of the different supplements. You think they were supplement taken back then? No. They didn't have to take supplements because everything that they needed came from the ground, and they knew the science of, the different seasonal vegetables and seasonal fruits, and they knew the different benefits of all of these things. King Solomon said that he knew the virtues of roots, and all of these different things. So our forefathers had that. They knew, okay, this is why I was listening to Salaki for a minute. I was listening to the young elder Amawan Gabar, a video he had done when he was young, his siblings, how his pops used to give them these different things that they hated, but that was something that Benjamin does, because they know about bitters, they know about certain things that you're supposed to take in order to keep the body functioning, although it tastes like hell, So our foremothers weren't, worried about taking supplements. When you ate food was supposed to replenish you. Let food be thy medicine. But what's going on today is that it's lacking. Why? Because of the inhabitants. Now, there's a scripture that the elder Yashawamba always puts up or quotes or brings out in the book of Ezekiel dealing with the seeds. How even that is corrupted. They got fucking GMO seeds. But let me read this quote that the brother put up. A quote from Henry Kissinger. Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. Exactly. And that's why they're bringing in the so-called global world order. And pretty much beautiful that he posted this, because that also goes into the lesson. Ecclesiastes 38:4 saying, brother, the Lord hath created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not abhor them, meaning he will not avoid them. The brother said Manuka tea does wonders. Okay. I know about Manuka honey. I didn't know about the tea. Manuka honey is expensive, so it's not something that you say, what, I'm gonna put a teaspoon of Manuka honey in my tea, because them things are expensive. But the earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. Right, because these devils are proud as hell. They're arrogant, and their arrogance is causing the destruction of the world. And they're going to languish because they're going to be removed. It says the earth also is what? Defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because the people that are ruling, their greed has brought the earth to the brink of extinction. But the only reason why the world hasn't come to extinction is because the Lord gave it an immune system that it would still keep kicking in, because the Lord said that the earth would abide forever. So we look up the word defiled. The word there is chanap. Chanap. To be profaned, be defiled, be polluted, be corrupt. To be polluted, to be profane, be godless. So now they're using their manipulation and destruction of the earth and the pollution as a goal for the reset for this so-called New World Order. So it says in search, this is a quote from Club of Rome, searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the earth is defiled, it's polluted under the inhabitants thereof. The threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention. So pretty much they're blaming it on the populace. This is why they have, sustainable developments. This is why they have the Malthusian theory, that there's going to come a point where humanity is going to exceed the supplies that they have. You see? But this is all nonsense, because if everyone was taught how to grow, how to plant, and had their own plot of land, there wouldn't be no hunger in the world like that, because people would be able to fend for themselves. So it says, and thus the real enemy then is humanity itself. And this is why they had the Georgia Guidestones. Now they destroyed them because they're moving into the next phase, because they already got venom in a whole lot of people. And the venom that's in them, I'm not trying to rhyme, the venom that's in them, plus the venom that is in these foods, and the different, diets that they push around the world, but mainly here in America, is destroying people, causing all different types of cancers. It says, Salaki for a moment. For that, I had to take that call. All right, so it says humanity itself. Believe humanity requires a common motivation, namely a common adversary, in order to realize world government. See? So they're shifting the blame from them to the people, so that they can realize that they need a what? A world government. And this is what it's all about, world government. Remember, this is a worldwide event that's going to take place. It's not one country. It's not one city. It's not one state. It's not one continent. It's the whole entire globe that they're pushing this agenda on. It's no coincidence that all nations are shifting into a digital system. And the more they shift in the direction of digital system, the more that these false prophets out here, their breakdowns on the MOTB is collapsing. So they have to bring more gimmicks. They have to spin more webs. They have to come out with more gimmicks, you know, to be able to keep the people entertained, so that the people won't ask questions. And pretty much they are their father, the devil, because this is what Esau does. They do the same exact thing. When they want to get people's minds off of the serious, hot topic, hot button issues, they flood them with smoke and mirrors. They flood them with bread and circuses. They flood them with diversions, entertainment, gossip, to misdirect them from the hardcore issues of the day. And the hardcore issue is that the MOTB is being laid out right before people's eyes. They're not hiding it anymore, because they already got to the point where they needed to be. Infrastructure's in place. They shut the world down for a period of time. They got everything rolling. And this is what they're pushing for. It does not matter if this common enemy is a real one or one invented for the purpose. So what are they telling you? That it's a boogeyman that they invented. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. All that matters is that it helps bring about their agenda, their goals. That's what they care about. All right. So going back to Isaiah 24:5, it says, the earth also defiled the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws. See, they don't keep the land Sabbaths. You know, they give rights to, Moism, right? Change the ordinance. They say they believe in God. They say 1983 was a year of the Bible. The United States is a God-fearing nation. They were built upon the tenets of Christianity, so on and so forth. But when you look at what they do, it's totally opposite. Broken the everlasting covenant. So what do you think the Lord's going to do? He's going to break their ass up. It says, therefore hath the what? Curse devoured the earth. So the earth is under the vibration of a curse. And that curse goes back to what? Goes back to Cain. For what he did to Abel, the righteous. And it continues on today in Esau, and what he did and what he's doing. And they that dwell therein are what? Desolate. This is why people are, starving. This is why people are sick. Because the earth is not yielding what it's supposed to yield. Because of the great curse and because of the depletion of all of the minerals, vitamins, and nutrients that the body needs to continue to function. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned and few men left, because the Lord is going to bring a fire to cleanse this. One day, a real rain is going to come and wash all this filth away. Inside joke. That's a actual paraphrasing quote from the movie Taxi Driver. So this is the article that I read yesterday in the lesson. I actually put it this time in the description box, and I also went back and I put it in the description box of the video I did yesterday. We also read part of this article at the camp, and in Pastor Tar said that's a very good, a very good article. He doesn't really, he goes into points here and there, but he doesn't really deal with a whole lot of articles. He's mainly goes into breaking the scriptures down, bringing out points, addressing false breakdowns, addressing prophecies and things of that nature. So I guess he liked this article. And he gets into, I'm not saying he doesn't get into it. He gets into a lot of different things. So it says the Club of Rome. And this is one of the things that first caught my eye. This caught my eye right away. Club of Rome, the Club of Rome. And this goes into what? The first beast. And what happened to that first beast? It was revived. Let's go to Revelation 13:1. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. So this other beast that came up out of the earth is pretty much the same beast, but just resurrected in the form of America, but also stemming from those 7 heads that were prior to it and all of their, allies. You had Greece. You had Rome, you had the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Britain. Those are the 7. And out of those 7 came what? The 8th head, which is America. So America is also considered a beast. All right? And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And the Apostle John actually seen this, but it represented America today. And he had 2 horns like a lamb. This represents their 2-party system, or what they call a bipartisan system. And why is it as a lamb? Because they appear as non-threatening. They're there to help the people, but they're not, because they're moving in the direction of the agenda of the international banking families. And he spake as a what? As a dragon, which is what? Through their legislation. And remember, the first beast had what? The power and strength of iron. This new beast or this other beast, which is the same beast coming back, they have the same power because it's an extension of the ancient Roman Empire. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. See? So the first beast is what? Rome. And this one exercises the power, all of the power of the first beast before him. When we look up this word exerciseth, the word there is poieo, right? To make with the names of things made to produce, construct, form, fashion. In other words, it's fashioned after the same way. To be the authors of the cause, right? So they're continuing on the legacy of the first beast in the same fashion, in the same power, under the same rules, under the same legislation, just in a different language. To prepare, to produce, to make an example, constitute or appoint one anything, to appoint or ordain one that, to be the authors of a thing. You see? To perform, to a promise. So they're pretty much performing or exercising all of the power of the first beast before him. And he caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed, because the first beast's wound was healed during the time of, the Roman Empire, when the Roman Empire fell. It first fell around 96 AD. Jake took over, but they continued on in the pagan Roman Empire. Then around 325 AD or so, when Constantine came in, he established what was known as the Holy Roman Empire, which was established upon the tenets of Christianity, even though he was a pagan himself and incorporated pagan things into it. But that was the shift into, Jake ruling through Christianity, even though it had pagan tenets to it. All right. So from that point on, 1,000 years in the future, you come into what? Around the early to mid 1300s into the 1400s. And this is around the time of the Renaissance period, the early stages of the Renaissance period, and this was that 1,000 years where they would be closed in, shut off, imprisoned. Then eventually they would come back up. And when they came back out, what would they do? They would start to deceive the whole world. And this is why you have today the world. Some people still around the world today, believe it or not, are still under the delusion that the Heavenly Father and His Son are so-called white people. That shows you how deep that deception went. Yahawashi said it, if at all possible, they would deceive the very elect. It says, whose deadly wound was healed during that time. It was healed when they came back into power during what was called the Renaissance. There's a reason why it was called the Renaissance. The Renaissance is a French word, means rebirth. Rebirth of what? Rebirth of Esau. Rebirth of the devil coming back on the earth. And what was the first thing that they did? Deceived the world. Then after that, conquered the world. And now they're at the point that after they're conquering, now they're going around to establish a new world or new type or one world system or one world government. All right. So let's go back here. The Club of Rome, how climate hysteria is being used to create global governance. It says in the early 1970s, the U.S. and much of the Western world was shifting into a stagflationary economic crisis. In other words, everything was stagnant. Nixon removed the dollar completely from the gold standard in 1971. The reason why was because the nation said, you know what, we want our money back. It began with the French. The French said, they got all these worthless dollars, like I believe it was, Michael Rivero breaking it down. All wars are bankers' wars. And he said, that the French were saying, look, we gave you all this cheese and wine and all this, and all we got is these worthless paper dollars. We want to cash in. So they wanted the gold. So the thing that the feds did, because it wasn't Nixon, they just used Nixon as a puppet. They told him to get rid of that standard, and that's what he did, which ultimately escalated inflation pressures. Europe's post-war boom came to an abrupt end, while prices on goods and oil, gasoline in the U.S. rocketed up until 1981 to 82, and I believe that was around the time when Reagan came in. I'm not sure exactly the exact year. when the Federal Reserve jacked interest rates up to around 20% and created a deliberate recessionary crash. Why? Because they were trying to eliminate the middle class. And they've been doing that ever since. All right. So the World Economic Forum was founded in 1971. There's no, surprise of that. It says the time period is often depicted in films, meaning the 70s, as a happy-go-lucky era of disco, drugs, hippies, and rock and roll. But the reality is that the early 1970s was the beginning of the end for the West. Why? Because they would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed, because she was a golden cup in the Lord's hand. But there came a point in prophecy that they had to decline and fall. This is what the book of Obadiah is all about. And the decline of a nation, comes from immorality. It comes from, allowing women to govern over men, allowing that filthy lifestyle to flourish. And also, well, of course, the military being too thin and decline. But the main thing is the economy. It says it was a moment that our economic foundations were sabotaged and the affluence of the middle class was slowly but surely stolen by inflation. In the midst of the economic malaise, which is disease or something like diseased, which Jimmy Carter later referred to as a crisis of confidence because the people of the world started not believing in the dollar as much. The United Nations, as associated, which is the United Nations is the beast. I'm sorry, not the United Nations. That's NATO and the EU. But the United Nations are all of the global nations of the world coming together. They're leaders, because every nation don't go to the UN. Just the leaders. This is why that says that the kings of the earth committed fornication with, in drinking of that cup that was in their hand. That has nothing to do with the micro C-hip. It has nothing to do with the MOTB. So it says the United Nations as associated globalist roundtable groups, and associated globalists. See, whenever you see globalist, global, universal, that's all moving towards the so-called one world order. Roundtable groups, which means what? If they're roundtable groups, mean that they're having meetings. This is why the Lord said that thou art weary in the multitude of thy counsels. They've been having counsel after counsel after counsel after counsel after counsel, trying to find out what is the best solution to bring about the best and quickest way to bring about this new world order. Well, hard at work because they accomplished a diligent search, developing a scheme to convince the population to what? Embrace global centralization of power. Meaning in the hands of a few. Some call it an oligarchy. That was one of Anthony Hilder's favorite quotes. Oligarchy, which was the rule pretty much of the world in the hands of a few. Their goals were rather direct, and these are the goals right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. A rationale for governmental control of human population numbers, hence your sustainable developments, your culling of the herd, your Georgia Guidestones, to power to limit industry, right? Because they give you this idea that you have the ability to create, and have free trade and do whatever you want, start your own business. But really, they only want their businesses to control everything. This is why you have about 5 or 6 major corporations that control everything else. But because they have these different names and logos on all these different companies, you're thinking it's all different companies. So you're thinking if you go to this company or you go to that company, you're buying from different people, but you're buying from the same people. Beautiful. Let me read some of these precepts. 2 Corinthians 2:11, least Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Beautiful. Job 5:14, they meet with darkness in the daytime, beautiful, and grope in the noonday as in the night, right? Because they're coming together, they're really blind, but they think that they can see. 2 Thessalonians, let's start at 8, 2 and 8. And then shall their wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Because the first step is exposure, the second step is judgment. Verse 9, it says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. And that's what they're doing. So, number 3, it says the power to control energy, production, and dictate energy sources. Yeah, we see that they're trying to push the world to go green, so-called. The power to control or limit food production and agriculture. We see this happening right this moment. You know, this is why they're paying farmers to destroy their crops, to destroy their livestock. It says the ability to micromanage individuals' lives in the name of some later defined greater good. A socialized society in which the individual right to property is abandoned. Right. And that's why it tells us in the book of Micah, chapter 2 and 1, it says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds, because what they're doing is really evil. It's really wicked. This is why the scriptures speak about the rich men and the things that you've done, that and you have kept back these people's wages, in so many words, by fraud. It says, when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. They have the power to do these things. Why? Because they control the monetary systems of the world, pretty much in a nutshell. They control the resources. They control all of the businesses that create all of this stuff. Yeah, but Coca-Cola is a small, it's just a spoke in the wheel. Now, when you're talking about Vanguard, you're talking about BlackRock, those type of companies, now you're talking. Coca-Cola is just like a spoke on the wheel because they belong to a larger group. But, I understand your point. They own about 500 different brands. Why? Because that's what they do. You come out with a product. The product is selling. They see it has potential. They come and offer you X amount of money, X amount of millions. You being an individual say, well, bam, fuck it. I ain't going to make that much. So you're not looking at the long run, and then they take over. They cheapen your brand, but they use your name, and boom. Now they making exorbitant amounts of money. But no, I understand what you're saying, brother. So it says here, right? It says, and they covet fields, meaning they want people's lands, they want people's resources, they want people's inheritance, right? Why? Because it is in the power of their hand. It says, and take them by what? By violence. Because once, they what's the word I'm looking for? Make shit so expensive for you that you have to, you can't afford it anymore. What happens next? You have to sell it off. And if you don't, eventually they come and take it. They come evict you. It says, and houses, and taking them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. This is why Jake doesn't have, you could also look up Vanguard. There's about 5 or 6 of them. This is why Jake, doesn't have inheritances. They don't have, for the most part, they don't have lands and homes that they can pass on to their children. Why? Because these devils, they want it all. So the next one is a one world economic system which they would manage. Do you see? A one world economic system. It all revolves around the economics, commerce. So you could understand. Inside joke. This is why Mayan said, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes the world. A what? A one world currency system. Why are the nations of the world all pushing for digital dollars, CBDCs? Because they're all in bed with these devils. And we're talking about the leaders of these nations. The ones that have been in bed with America. Revelation 17:1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. The great whore is America, the biggest whore on the planet, that sitteth upon many waters, meaning she has sway over many nations. The waters represent nations and and kingdoms. It says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. When you go to the United Nations, you have many nations all represented there from all around the globe. But all nations are not there. The peoples, the common people, the ones that are there are the leaders of these nations. These are the kings or the rulers or the princes of these different nations. And these kings are committing fornication with the harlot, America. Because where is this, land and this building located? The United Nations building is located in America. And it was donated for the purpose of the United Nations building by the Rockefellers. And they did what? They erected a building which is nothing more than a monolith. What is a monolith? Mono is one, lith or lithos is stone. One stone. Monolith, one stone. Why? Because it's a representation of all nations coming together into one world government. So it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the what? With the wine of her fornication, beginning with her democracy. And of course, you throw money to the average person and you can make them dance your dance. They're making you walk their walk, Buster. Inside joke. So, going back, and the last one is this number 8, a one world currency system, a one world government managing a handful of separate regions. So what do you think this one world currency is going to consist of? The MOTB, which is the so-called micro CHIP. This is why the WEF, the World Economic Forum, this is why your Klaus Schwabs and your Hararis are all speaking about putting something in somebody subdermally to track everything, but also to do all of your transactions that way. Now, you go to different stores around America, certain places, and now they're getting people used to waving their hand, over these readers, these palm readers, in order to get them used to this new system. Now the readers are just reading their actual palm prints or your fingerprints or your iris, scan, all going back to biometrics, but eventually they're getting people used to that, because remember, at one time you had the credit card, you had the debit card, now you had the CHIP in those credit cards. Insert the CHIP, now they're having you wave the card over these scanners. Now they're getting people used to waving their hand or their iris or their thumbprint, because they're getting everything prepared. Remember, gradualism. All right, so now what I want to do is, when you go to Revelation 13 and 16, it speaks about the MARK, right? And this is what people are going to receive in order to be able to buy or sell, to do business, to sell, to buy, whatever the case may be. When we look up this word MARK, right? The word MARK goes back to the Greek word charagma, right? Which is a stamp, an imprinted mark, of the MARK stamped on the forehead of the right hand as a badge of the followers of the anti-Messiah, which is going to be put inside of them. A mark branded upon horses, because a branding is a declaration of ownership. And when people get branded with this micro CHIP, it's a declaration that you have a master and that you are a servant, but you are a servant for life, because those horses get branded, and they are branded with the name of that, or the brand of that particular master. And guess what? It's theirs for life. It says thing carved, sculpture, graven work, cutting into, or of idolatrous images. When we go to the root word of that is the word charax, from carousel to sharpen to a point. Now, why is it to sharpen to a point? Because the device used in today's terms to get that micro C-hip into people is that so-called needle, which is reminiscent of what? Of the awl, right? Of the awl in ancient times. Exodus 21. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's just go. Let me see this one. Because this is a reiteration. So let's see Deuteronomy 15:15. And thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy power redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. And it shall be, if he say unto thee, I will not go away from thee, because you had Israelites that had other Israelites, in captivity, like here, 12 verse. And if thy brother in Hebrew man or in Hebrew woman be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. But the thing is, it says, when he gets ready to send them away, and it shall be, if he say unto thee, I will not go away from thee, because he loveth thee and thine house, because he is well with thee. And sometimes the man or woman would come into the man will come into the authority of this other Israelite man, and he would give him a woman. And he would marry the woman. He would have children with the woman. He would grow feelings for the woman, and his children. So he didn't want to leave. Because he loveth thee and thine house, because he is well with thee. Then thou shalt take an awl, which an awl is what? It looks like an ice pick. And it's used to what? Bore holes. This was the ancient way of marking or branding servants or slaves. And thrust it through his ear unto the door, and he shall be thy servant for what? Ever. Servant forever. This is why Esau wants to put the micro C-hip into people, because they want slaves forever, because that is a badge of, ownership of property. It says, and also unto thy maidservant thou shalt do likewise. So let's look up this word all real quick. Well, you know what? Let's go to images, because they're playing games. Here goes an all. Right, let's go to this one, because it has many different ones. This is an all. What do you have in the awl? They all of them, whether they have a handle or not, are all what? Sharpened to a point. Boom, 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 boom. All sharpened to a point. For what purpose? To make holes. Now you could use this to make holes into fabrics, whether it's leather, whether it's, whatever different, types of, mostly leather. And they would bore holes into it, but it was also used in the ancient world to bore holes into the ears of servants or lifelong servants. All right. Now, when we go to Deuteronomy 15:17 and we look up the word all, you have the word maratazai, which the root word ratazai lets me know that the ma at the beginning of it is not connected to the word. And if you have ma at the beginning of a Hebrew word that's not connected to the word itself, it's of or from. So this is of or from ratazai. Ratazai is what? Bore. What does it mean to bore? That means when you drill or when you poke a hole into something or someone. And this poking of this hole into something or someone is a badge that this person is a servant and they belong to someone for life. Okay? It says all boring instrument. Now let's go to the root word ratazai. It says to bore, pierce of the ear. See? Because that was the way they did it in the ancient world. So that So did the MOTB, or let's see, the MARK exist in the ancient world? Yes, but it wasn't being called the MOTB because the beast wasn't yet in the earth. But there was a way, a form, a law that was set up to distinguish or how to make a servant for life. You see? So let's go back. Now we're going to go to Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 27. I'm going to start at 28. You shall not eat anything with the blood, neither shall you use enchantments nor observe times. And it's heavy because this is one of the laws that was given to the Israelite foreigners when they had that whole debate about the circumcision. This is one of the laws that's in the law that these wacky-tacky Christians say that's done away with. It says, you shall not round the corners of your head, because you're not supposed to line up your head. Neither shalt thou mar the corners of thy beard. You're not supposed to line up your beard either. It has a natural line. Now, brothers trim it down. There's nothing wrong with trimming it down, as long as you don't cut into it to line it up like some groups do. You shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead. You can't cut yourself, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. Now let's look up the word print, because a print is what? To cut into. The word there is nathan, which the word nathan means to give. But also, let's see, to be put upon. Right, like you have tattoos, that are printed upon people. Then you have the word marks. And the Hebrew word is what? Kwai. And what does the word kwai mean? Incision. What is an incision? An incision, or what? Gash. To what? Cut into. So did the concept of the MARK exist in the ancient world? Yes, it did. But it wasn't being called the charagma because that's a Greek word. But the Hebrew equivalent or synonym for it would be kwai. You have incision, a surgical cut made in skin or flesh. Let's go to images. Boom. This was an incision. It was cutting into the flesh. And what happened? They stapled them back. All right. You have cuttings into everything. Well, that's dealing with a woman cutting. This is dealing with C-section. Then you have what? You have the scalpel, which was used to cut into the flesh, right? So you see, you get the idea. This is somebody's hand that was cut up, different, wrists, different things. That's an ugly knee, so on and so forth, right? So you get the idea. That's an incision. Imprintment, tattoo, MARK. So it's a cutting into, which goes back to the word kwai, which is koa, which is a city. All right. But the point is that it's an incision, a cutting into. All right. So this is, like I said, it's synonymous with the word karax, with the word karagma, karax, from karasso, to sharpen to a point. For what purpose? To cut into. Right? It says a pale or stake, a palisade. Now, what is a pale? Let's look up pale. Let's look up images. Because we got to take it as slow. We got to take it as slow. A pale, stake, boom, there you go. And this is what the Romans would use. They would sharpen these edges of wood to what? To insert them into the ground. And it was easier to insert these into the ground when they had a point to them than to try to shove them in there when they were flat. All right, and what does this look like? Well, it looks just like the awl, the ancient awl, but it also looks like let's go here. Let's see if they have the procedure. Well, that's let's see, that's not going to be that big. I'm not sure if he's just taking blood, but no, he's putting a micro C-hip in there. It looks like blood in there, but let's go to something else. Right, boom, there we go, there we go. There goes your all, there goes your Karax, you know, there goes your Pale, there goes your Karaso, there goes your Kwai, there goes the incision, there goes the cutting into the flesh, and this thing, when it goes into you, this is a delivery system that shoots out the micro C-hip into the person. Now they have a different way of doing it when they cut into the head, but now they don't even have to cut into a head with a scalpel, because they have contraptions where they can bore a very small hole in your head to insert this thing through the Neuralink. Come on, people. All right, so going back, a pale or stake, a palisade or rampart, pales between which earth, stone, trees, and timbers are heaped and packed together. Boom. For what? What do they do that for? To claim your stake, to separate a portion of land as belonging to this person. Those stakes separate. Those micro C-hips, those MARKs, you know, the Karagma, distinguishes the different slaves and who they belong to and what master they belong to. It's not that hard. All right. Then the final root word of the MARK, you have Karax, you have Karagma, you have Karax. Then you have something called Grapho, is where you get the word graph from, where you get the writings from. And what is the writings? These are records that are kept within this particular device. You know, it says to write with the reference to the form of the letters, to delineate or form letters on a tablet, parchment, paper, or other material, to write with reference to the contents of the writings, to express in written characters, to commit to writings things not to be what? Forgotten. Write down, record. You see? So these things are all inside of the micro C-hip. When you watch that the interview with Russo and Alex Jones, he told him within there that Nicholas Rockefeller told him that you will have everything on that C-hip. Everything. And if the person acts up, they just turn it off. They went so bold as they're going to get it. The international banking families are going to get a micro C-hip to function in this system. But their micro C-hip, which is going to have a password, the password is going to be KMA. KMA. And Aaron Russo said, what does that mean? He said, kiss my ass. You see? So it says, use of those things which stand written in the sacred books of the Old Testament to write to one an example by writing in a written epistle. So pretty much the sentiment of Grapho is what? Writing. The writings. And you have a bunch of precepts that go into it. The word wrote, written. You know, I'm pretty sure the word write should be in there, right? Right? You see? So it carries a sentiment of what? Recording something. And that's all contained within that micro C-hip. You know? So these are these devil's plans. And this is the first beast. But the first beast that was on the earth, that is on the earth today, they're shifting in the direction of this technological age, because these technologies that we see today didn't exist in the past. You know, they didn't have computers in the way that they have them now. They didn't have the internet in the way they had it now. They didn't have the infrastructure of these different satellites and the connections, you know, of all of these, you know, devices, you know, communicating with each other back then as they do now. Let's see, grapho, a combining form meaning writing, yep, used in the formation of compound words, yep. So Daniel 12:4 tells us, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, because at one time this book was sealed. There was the understanding, you know, the mysteries were sealed. But the Lord said what? The Lord power will do nothing but he revealeth the secrets unto his servants, the prophets. So guess what? The prophets will know the mysteries, and the prophets will report the mysteries. That's why the scripture the brother put earlier in 2 Thessalonians 2, it says, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. And then he shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. See? Even to the time of the end. So when did the end time begin? Well, it began with Yahawashi. No coincidence that when Yahawashi came on the scene, he opened the mysteries. He opened the seals. Then for a period of time, we all fell asleep. Tells us that in the second Esdras. And eventually now, when Yahawashi, you know, well, actually when Yahawashi comes back, we're going to know everything perfect. When that is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with. But now we have a perfect understanding for the times to be able to bring out the different mysteries and the different prophecies, you know, and to usher in the coming of the Lord Yahawashi, because we are the heralds. You know, in Lord's will, we make it to the end. It says, many shall run to and fro, because as technology increased, people were able to go to and from faster than they did in the ancient world. It took, you know, King Solomon, Hiram's navy and all that, a year and a half to come to this side of the world. It took our forefathers a year or so to come to this side of the world, the northern kingdom. But now you can go from one continent to the other in a matter of hours. So they run into and fro. And what? And knowledge shall be increased. And we see everything went from what? Back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever it was, whenever it was, them big ass machines that they call computers. Now you can have a little smartphone in your hand. You can fit in your hand that has the capability of all of those big ass machines that they had back then. So knowledge has increased, you know. And this is why they're setting everything in the direction of the infrastructure, you know, of this digital system, predicated upon what? A global currency. Come on, man. You know, if you can't see this, you either blinded or you sold out. Bottom line. And this is why the IUIC is out there pushing so much, you know, against the MOTB. Why? Because back then they weren't even really talking about it. They might address it every once in a blue moon. But now the infrastructure and the evidence, the receipts are stacking up so much that they're being asked all kinds of questions. But wait a minute, this over here and that over there. And that's why, you know, the general, go to the general and save some time. The general, Nathaniel Alaga, came up with this brilliant, or what he thought was a brilliant mastermind, you know, chess move, which was nothing more than checkers, bringing out Revelation 17. Yeah, she had a golden cup in her hand. What? The microchip. You know, and on her forehead was written, mystery, Babylon the Great. Oh, man, they got body bag. Come on, man. That shit was weak. And anybody that fell for that, they're just as weak. You know, the simple believeth every word. That was straight up bullshit. That was a move of desperation. Because now that he brought that out, maybe some of them people are getting off his ass, you know, from asking him all those questions. Because what he did was he put a spell on them. You know, he bewitched them. You know? Yep. Like as the Bishop Elder Menatazak said, Shalom Apostle Wa Akim, the IOC is very desperate. Oh yeah. They are very, very, very desperate. This is why they'll go to any length to save their name. You know what I mean, Bishop? You got the bishop's name in your mouth? Yeah, it's June. Ain't no microchip. It's June. Somebody should put a beat to that. You know? And you can see, man, they're scrambling and rambling, you know, because they see that it's evident. Now you can't hide that. You know, the prophecy is speaking loud and clear. At the end it shall speak and not lie. It's not lying. It's speaking. But what's happening is their lies that they've weaved and fought so hard to get out there are crumbling. So they got to spin new ones. Damn, man, that shit fell apart. Oh, man, thought we had a foolproof plan, man. Come on, let's get it, you know? And then they got to, you know, keep that cheap veneer up, because the cheap veneer only lasts so long. It looks nice on the outside, but eventually once it fades and breaks down, boom, what happens? You start to say, wait a minute. Is that what I think it is? Well, no, you ain't see nothing. There ain't nothing to see here. To take a napkin, put it, you know, trying to cover this shit up. Eventually, all of that cheap veneer is going to be removed. And the Lord said that in that day it shall be known who are his chosen. And let me leave you with this one precept in the book of Micah. I'm sorry, not Micah, Malachi, chapter 3. You know, Malachi chapter 3 and verse 16. It says, then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord and that thought upon his name. And they're not thinking of and fearing the Lord's name. They don't fear him. They don't think upon his name. They're blessing people in the name of Christ. That's a blatant, you know, transgression. Keep the laws, the statutes, the commandments, but they don't keep them. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord Yahawah, in the day when I make up my jewels. And I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Because we're going through the trenches of affliction for the purification and purging, right? Then shall you return and discern, meaning you're going to be able to tell between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth the Most High and him that serveth him not. It's going to be known at the end of the day. Yahawah is going to make it plain. Ain't going to be no mystery. Ain't going to be no guessing in that day. And what's happening right now is all of this, the prophecy, all of the prophecy of the MOTB is coming out in the forefront. No holds barred. You know, it's all coming out. Every single aspect of it, and everything in the world that has to deal with economics is all heading in a digital system way. So there's no hiding it anymore. There's no more web spinning. Gimmicks are out the door. Truth is what's going to stand. And no lie is of the truth. You know, so with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say Shalom. And Yahawah Shemel Shai Brakathum. If any apostles or bishops, you know, elders watching, sincere brothers, and any of the sincere sisters, Shalom to you. And I pray that you brothers and sisters learn something. To the next time I say Shalom.